Morning, class. Gerald here from Arlington, Texas. Just following up for another week as we talk about Mr. Worthington's work. I enjoyed his work very much. In chapter 10 today deals with the psychological science, the fact that psychological science is limited. That's his point. It is a powerful but limited tool. And we can know from God from the study of psychological sciences, but there are some limitations. He discusses many limitations of psychological science in and of itself, but what really challenged me and intrigued me was the time that he spent discussing people. We all also have limitations. So in light of those limitations, we learn from psychological science, but with those limitations, sometimes what we learn is filtered differently depending on who we are and our situation. So it's interesting. He made that one statement that we base our lives on the way that fits our beliefs, and we do. So I receive from him and my psychological science studies that go through the filter of my grid of my beliefs, which have been resonating within me for years because I'm older and have those beliefs somewhat hardened and settled in my system. And it's quite interesting to compare my wife and I to our neighbors who have a different set of, let's say, Christian or non-Christian beliefs, and how they view the world and they view circumstances, and even how they think that psychological science would impact them. So this is a very, very interesting discussion that Mr. Worthington has, and though I'm looking forward to the next chapter on theology, which is one of my favorite things to study, I will make a couple of comments here about the points that he made regarding our own limitations, because before I can glean, I think, all that I should and can or need to learn from the psychological sciences, which I'm presently studying with you, I have to first examine myself. The principle from the book of Matthew, the Sermon on the Mount: if you see a brother with, I'll use this phrase, a 2x4 in his eyes, first check to see if you got a splinter in your eye, get that splinter out of your eye, then go to your brother and help him with his problem. And many times the things we see in others are simply a reflection of what is in us. That's the theological view. So it's interesting to me when he discusses people having limitations like memory. I'm certainly at those ages or stages of my life where my memory is certainly not as sharp as it used to be, so that becomes a limitation, especially when I take the quiz. Also, my self-serving bias. There's no doubt. I used to think, oh, I'm open-minded, I'm so much this and that, but people who knew me did not think so much. I was a dyed-in-the-wool, independent, fundamental Baptist, so I carried that bias wherever I went. And I personally believe that people treated me and thought of me as that kind of individual, though I didn't think I was that kind of individual. I was still, in their minds, I'm sure, giving off the aura that that's who I was. Because we all have some type of self-serving bias in what we write and how we encourage others and how we make statements to others. I helped a person today admit into a mental health hospital and very suicidal. And I had a self-serving bias. My bias was I wanted that person to see, without being pushy or overwhelming, that they needed to be in this hospital right now till they could get stable. Because when you're consumed with thinking about taking your life, there's something wrong there. And my self-serving bias was to get them help. Doing it gently, doing it kindly, doing it courteously, trying to help them think that it was their call, but yet still my bias was persuading them they needed to be there in order to be safe and get some help. Thank you. They were successful. And lastly, the stage of our development. At all the different stages of life, we are experiencing life differently. I'm experiencing a different cognitive life now than I had when I was in my university years, like most of you. I'm experiencing life differently morally at this stage of my life. I have some very clearly defined and settled moral boundaries that are hardened in stone that probably weren't hardened so much in my earlier years. I have emotional feelings that are much different. I'm in a whole different place emotionally. And my social abilities certainly has changed. All of those things have changed as we've aged. So I really think as we look at limitations of psychological science and learn about those, we first need to experience looking at and learning from our own limitations, seeing them honestly and accurately, humbling ourselves, and looking to the Lord to teach us all that we can learn so we can benefit not only ourselves and change our things that need to be changed, but especially benefit those He has put in our path. Excuse me, I forgot I was still wearing my mask when I set this video in place, so I finished with the mask on the neck. Have a great day. Bye-bye.